Hello, everyone, and welcome to Elevate Your Business. I'm Ed Jurecki, and I'm thrilled to guide you through today's episode. It's designed to inspire and empower you on your journey to business success. Today, we have the owner director of Elements for Success, Kylee Leota, with us. Elements for Success is a global organization dedicated to providing transformational experiences for individuals, teams, and businesses. Kylie believes that success is defined as a progressive realization of a worthy goal or ideal, a principle that guides her mission to empower people of all ages. The organization focuses on equipping individuals with confidence, skills, and tools necessary to design a purposeful life. Elements for Success emphasizes that everyone possesses the knowledge to achieve their goals, and it provides the essential tools to turn those aspirations into reality. With a strong background in education and leadership, Kylie aims to make a positive impact across various sectors, including complex behavior, trauma, and early intervention. So join me in welcoming Kylee Leota to the show. Kylie, it's wonderful to see you again. How are you doing?
It's so grateful to be here. And so just, I'm excited to get in and get started on this podcast with you.
Outstanding. Well, to start with, could you share a little bit more about yourself and your business?
Yeah, so I often joke that I'm an accidental business owner because I was in education for a very long time. And even from a little girl, I always wanted to be an educator. I first wanted to be a music educator, but apparently you need musical talent for that. So then that was my first pivot, realizing that I had to, pivot to something that I was actually good at. And then that, progressed through a journey and led me into a teaching career that was very satisfying for a very long time until it wasn't. And then, like most people during COVID, they had a bit of a oh my gosh moment. What am I going to do with my life? Mine happened probably about 18 months before COVID. So maybe I was a bit advanced, having my internal crisis. But I had an injury, and that led me into recalibrating my life and leading into this life of business, which I absolutely love. And my goal in life now is to empower others to be the best version of themselves, whether that be personally or professionally, and overcome some of those challenges by, we've discussed before, there's lots of knowledge out there currently. You can't, turn on a social media thing without getting smacked in the head with some form of knowledge. But it's the problem that people are having is transforming that into practice for themselves and taking away all the white noise and picking out what's relevant to them and how to put that into practice. And that's something that I'm really passionate about and really keen to support people with because I know what that's like. I have done that journey more times than I care to count. And we often do the things that we wish that we had. And I wished I had somebody walking along beside me in that journey when I was navigating that. It would have made my life a whole lot easier than having to do it on my own. And so I know firsthand how difficult that is, both personally and professionally. So I'm really passionate about making that journey easier for others and creating a safe space for brave and courageous conversations to navigate what goes through your head as you're facing those complexities.
And so your journey is absolutely incredible. How do you define success today?
So, as you alluded to at the intro, Earl Nightingale, who's one of the OGs of personal development from back in the day, he had this definition of success, which was the ongoing progressive realization of a worthy goal or ideal. And when I heard that, I just clung to it like gold because I think, like most people, I had this definition of success of, you've got to have the big house, the money, the cars, the CEO position, or whatever that looked like. It was always being the top of everything. And so for many of us, it felt unattainable. But when I latched onto Earl Nightingale's definition of success, I realized that success is attainable for everybody. You need clarity on what that looked like for you, and then those steps on how to get there. So taking that bigger vision and breaking it down into the micro steps, but understanding how the steps that you take need to be intentional and purposeful to get you where you want to go.
So today it sounds like things are much more of a balance with the recognition that you don't have to achieve lofty CEO goals of a large organization in order to be successful and feel successful. Is that a fair way to say that?
For sure. I'm a parent. And so what does success look like as a parent? It looks like raising happy, healthy, all-rounded children that have the skills and the tools to navigate the next steps in their life, right? And combined Earl Nightingale's quote with Glennon Doyle's quote that says, "My children don't need me to save them. They need to watch me save myself." And that was pretty profound also, because whether you're thinking like personally as a parent, if you model the way, then your children are going to know what to do on that journey. They're not going to need you to come in and pick them up and rescue them every 5 seconds. But the same is true of leadership. Not that we're parents to the people that we lead, but the same principle applies. If we are good models of practice and work out how to model, overcoming challenges, effective communication, all that, we're going to lead the way for our teams. So we're going to model that. And by definition, we're going to grow success because success isn't scarcity. And I think we need to know that everybody can have success if we've got the right supports around us as well.
Outstanding. But of course, that journey to where you've got to today, they're always wrought with challenges. What are one or two of those key challenges and the lessons learned to pass along to our audience?
Yeah, so I'll share a personal challenge and a professional challenge because I think, so many times we think about in business, we've got to leave our personal lives at the door. But the truth is, we are ourselves. And if we're trying to bring our authentic self in our business, that's our whole selves, which is personal and professional. So, one of my personal challenges, and I know many people navigate this in silence, is I left a very domestic and family violence relationship. So, I 9 years ago now, everything came to a head. There'd been problems for a long time, but had been too probably ashamed to talk about it. I was doing well in my professional life, and that very beautiful mask that I wore to work every day, people wouldn't know what was going on in my personal life. And so people can't help you if they don't know what's going on. But when that started to not, I started to get to a position where I couldn't mask that anymore. It was getting to the point where it was so unhealthy and so unsafe. And it was a really significant and awful time in my life. And I remember feeling so deflated when everything came to the head. There were police, there were lots of different things involved. And I remember sort of sitting there post one incident going, why can I be successful in this part of my life? But this stuff has fallen apart. And using the principles of leadership, obviously there's services available to you like psychologists and social workers and things like that. And I tried a number of those services, but I didn't find them particularly effective for me personally at that time. There are good people out there, and I don't want to discredit that. But in the time, it was my leadership lessons that I'd learned in professional life. Because if I look at success leaves clues, so I was being successful over here, what was I applying over here that I could take away and apply into my personal life? So, from a personal journey, I think that's a really hard place for people to be because people don't want people to think less of them professionally. So, it's very hard for them to do that. So, personally, went through more than one significant personal hardship, but that was a very significant one for me. Became a single mum of three children, doing it all on my own, and having to still be this high level professional in my career. And certainly, even though we talk about domestic and family violence more, there's still a culture of leave that at the door kind of stuff. So it was pretty hard to navigate. Professionally, one of the challenges I've had to navigate is unsafe cultures in organizations. And I mentioned to you earlier when we spoke that at one of the organizations, when I do leadership training and deliver leadership and high performance teams training, I talk about one of the big things I'm passionate about is having strong psychological safety. And the reason being is because I worked in cultures where I didn't have it. And that was pretty significant in terms of me keeping positions when I was contracted. It was around the fact that I got told that I talked too much to brown children one time in an organization, which has absolutely nothing to do with my ability to do a job. In actual fact, our school was 60% that diverse community. So you actually think that me being able to have a strong relationship with those kids would be an absolute positive, but it was seen as a negative. And also being told I was intimidated because I was knowledgeable, because I was a woman. So we know that diversity and inclusion piece is still a huge gap in organizations. And so what is it like? You start to question yourself and being gaslit in your own organization. Gaslighting is not just something happens in your personal life, it happens professionally as well. So having navigated that and then used my, again, deep dive on my leadership skills to pivot and recalibrate my career and going into a more psychologically safe organization and developing those tools to know how to create that for myself, not just expect an organization to do that for me, I think has been a huge pivotal changing point in how I navigate opportunities and obstacles moving forward, both in my own personal business, but when I go into organizations as well.
What I'm hearing in that is two things. Number one, I'm so sorry for the experience that you went through and for everybody out there that has to go through abusive relationships.
Mm.
But what I also am hearing is your values, the principles of good leadership apply to your personal life as much as they apply to your professional life. And those should
Mm.
always be in consideration as you're navigating that portion of your life. Is that a fair way to say that?
Yeah, because in order to lead others, you've got to lead yourself. And that leading others could be your children, it could be leading your team, it could be leading anyone. And so it always starts with you. And so the model that I created was based off both my professional and personal obstacles that I faced. And it always starts with your own identity. Who am I at this point in time? And is that I serving me to get where I want to go? And it'd be very easy in my personal experience to have the identity of a victim because it's a valid one. I was, but that identity wasn't serving me to get where I wanted to go. Even I struggle with, again, a very valid, another one is survivor. I am a survivor of domestic violence and family violence, but through my leadership tools that I've developed, I like to think of myself as a thriver. And, I always struggled with the concept. You will hear people talk about, what doesn't happen, things don't happen to you, they happen for you. And when you've gone through horrific experiences like I have, and many people I know have, I found that such a hard concept to get. So, how did my experience of having to navigate horrific domestic violence happen for me? But Oprah Winfrey had a quote that talked about finding wisdom in your wounds. And that I can get my head around. Everyone navigates different wounds in their life, maybe not so horrific, I hope, for your sake and your audience's sake, navigating family and domestic violence. But we all have wounds. And so I guess part that I have really hung on to is what wisdom have I gained from that experience? Not that it happened for me. I really struggle with that concept, but what's some wisdom that I can take away so that I can continue to evolve on my journey? And one of my pieces of wisdom was, I guess I was already an empathetic person, but it really leveled up how I navigated vulnerable communities. It helped me navigate. I actually think it accentuated my leadership ability to go into not being so judgmental, both personally and professional, and understand that I don't know what's going on in people's lives. So when I'm looking at things like performance, instead of just going, oh, they're lazy or they're this or they're that, going back to going, I wonder what's going on for them
Yeah.
and checking in first before I make that call to run up that ladder of inference that it's just poor performance.
Yeah.
And I
I
think
love
that's a
it.
piece of wisdom that I tailor into my practice now. And when I'm delivering executive leadership coaching and doing those kind of things, I've gone into organizations and they're like, Kylie, you are the last stop before we manage them out. And both times that's happened, we've managed to change that trajectory for those individuals and to get a
Outstanding.
win-win for both the individual and the
And the company.
organization by understanding what was going on behind the scenes that was leading to some of that maladaptive behavior that we were seeing in the organization. And I think the other part of it too is what's mine to own. Like we talk about above the line, take ownership, accountability, and responsibility. So there is a certain part of you that goes, okay, how am I contributing to this space? But the other part of it is this is outside of my scope to change. And am I smashing my head against a brick wall by continuing to walk into, the definition of insanity, doing the same behavior and expecting a different outcome, right? So we know that, and we know that fear drives our decisions to stay. So staying in a toxic culture and a toxic organization is the same as staying in a toxic relationship. We stay because we don't feel like there's other options. What if we were able to see possibility and also what can I take ownership for? No one says leaving a toxic relationship is easy and often it's unsafe. But what do we need to do to put safety mechanisms in place so that you can leave? Toxic cultures are the same. Because if you've got toxic cultures and you've got toxic leadership, the fallout is they often know other people in your industry. So you've still got to exit well as a safety mechanism to allow you to continue in your career because people that are toxic have the facility to destroy your life, whether that be personally or professionally. So I help people navigate that and exit, on a positive note if they need to, rather than burning the bridges and blowing it up. And and I think the other thing that's really important is if you're a really solid person who has really good values, don't allow that culture or that person's behavior to define yours, because then you
Okay.
give away your power. So if you turn into this version of yourself that does not align with your values, you've then given away your power by allowing that situation to do that to you. And it's understandable that it brings out these feelings in you. But I always go back to, who is the person that you want to be that person. So if someone's, antagonistic to you and I guess baiting you into, the emails or the text or the communication that's very antagonistic and trying to get a reaction out of you. I The most powerful thing I did one time was had this communication going on, and my instinct response was to pick up and go, "Oh, right, you want to go," and start in that thing, and then step back and went, "Hang on, if I value myself as a person of integrity, a person of compassion, and a person of empathy, is this communication I'm delivering right now any of those things?" And I'd realized I'd given away my power in that situation. So put it down, paused, and recalibrated. And then when I did communicate, I communicated with authenticity and compassion, with a boundary and integrity, because I wasn't going to allow that person to define me and how I showed up.
Well defined. And so shifting
Mm.
our conversation to innovation, a topic that's
Yeah.
usually on people's mind. Help us understand how you leverage innovation to drive your business success.
So innovation is really interesting for me because I think innovation and creativity go hand in hand. And if you'd asked me if I thought I was a creative person particularly, I would have said no, because I'm not artistic. I'm, not all into those things. But my career for 20 plus years was in education in complex behavior, disability, and trauma. So I was the person that was getting kids off roofs. I was the person that was getting knives. I was the one that was having to be very innovative in how we created safe environments in our organizations. And because traditional methods weren't cutting it. So, out of the box thinking and creative solutions for traditional circumstances. So innovative. And I think this is a part where some people get themselves stuck. One, because they're not in a psychologically safe environment. Because if you're in a psychologically safe environment, you have the confidence to share your ideas and recognize that that's part of an innovative process, is putting things out there and working out what's a good fit. I think so. If you've got a psychologically safe environment, you're actually going to share and realize that there's no judgment there about that. And everyone's just working together for the collective good to find a good solution. But if you're scared, or if you don't feel like you've got a psychologically safe environment, you're going to be too scared to put forward your ideas for fear of that judgment piece. So I think foundationally, in a psychologically safety is a very key part. And, Project Aristotle and Amy Edmondson work all support the fact that you can't have innovation without that. I think the other part of it too is we have to separate our ego from the innovative ideas, right? Because if the goal for the greater good is to create a solution that works for the organization or works for yourself, that means it may not be your solution, but it's about putting your ideas out there and not being attached to it has to be the best one or it has to be the one that's picked. Because if your collective ideas come up with the innovative approach, fantastic. And sometimes we get attached to, or, I know somebody just recently was like, I'm not going to share this because, because they're not going to get the recognition at this point in time. So our egos get in the way, I think, a lot of the time of innovative practice. Also, a fear of failure. That's an ego-driven thing, is because we don't want to fail. We don't want to be seen. We fear what people will think of us. So then that holds us back from potentially getting involved in that innovative process and going through the concept is that sometimes you're going to win them and sometimes you're not. And that's just how that rolls.
Yeah, one of the favorite phrases that I've seen out on LinkedIn multiple times recently is "do it scared." And I can
For sure.
and I can tell you
Whoa.
there are times that's always where my wife and I are moving overseas. And if you have not done that before, especially when you come from a very established life like ours, that is a big
Mm,
undertaking. And
mm,
there are times that will just come up. Keep moving forward, do it
mm.
scared.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think that's a very valid one, and I think the other part of it too is when you are when you are a professional, you can look very calm on the surface, so people don't think you're scared, and that doesn't mean that you're actually not. I also think the comfort zone is very poorly named because I don't think people are necessarily comfortable. I think they're familiar. And so we get stuck in wanting to stay in this zone of familiarity because our fear is stopping us take that next step and stretch ourselves out to what could be unfamiliar because we crave a bit of certainty. If COVID taught us nothing else, many of us didn't cope in the uncertainty of what was going on, right? So if that starts to bring up feelings or uncomfortableness for us, we're like, oh, I don't think so. But innovation is on the other side of that door of,
Yeah.
opening that door that has scared on it and going, look, and a lot of the time when I'm coaching people, the anticipation and fear of what could happen versus what actually happens is usually two very distinct things. And 9 times out of 10, the thing is never as scary as we anticipate it to be.
Agreed.
And I would never have got where I am. And look, parenting's a really good goal in doing it scared, right? When you're first starting out, you don't know what you're doing, so you've still got to move through it. And I think the other thing is I remember many years ago as a single parent, my my ex-husband was saying something about, well, I've got this going on and I've got this going, I can't have the kids. I got da, 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 da. And he was just making all the excuses. And I'm just sitting there going, well, I don't have that. But we can't choose not to parent today because I'm feeling scared or because I'm feeling this or because I'm feeling there's no opt out here. So I think sometimes when we feel like we've got lots of options, that also stops us from going through the scared door because we're going to take this option and this option and this option before we get to that one. But sometimes when you've just got no choice, it's actually easier to go, well, buckle up. Here we go. Let's go. And so sometimes we give ourselves too many outs to stop ourselves from going through the scared door, I think.
So, final takeaway for our audience, if there was one thing that you shared with them that they really must do for their life and business success, what would that be?
I've got about 10, but I'll pick my favorite one at the moment. So, one of the things that I recognized 9 years ago, when I went through my horrific experience personally and professionally, I've been through some stuff, is that I didn't have a very solid reflective practice. I was so busy existing in life that I didn't have a solid conscious choosing to reflect on life. So I kept making the same mistakes over again and over again. And I kept choosing, go and then going, oh my gosh, why am I here again? Why am I here again? So I actually wasn't building into my day, into my week, into my month, a reflective practice that went, okay, well, what went well today? How can I do more of that? Right? Success leaves clues. How can I do more of that? And then what didn't go well, caveat, without judging, oh my God, Kylie, you screwed that up again today, whatever. No, just, oh, well, that didn't work today. Why? And what did I need to reduce, change, or eliminate to get back over into that column of what's working well? And I think for me, the pattern, and still now, even though you and I are both very experienced operators and been around the ridges for a while, and we speak on this stuff, doesn't mean we don't fall into the same traps sometimes.
That's a
And
fair statement.
the when I pause, it's because I've stopped doing my reflective practice. Like I do it every day, but if I skip, a week because life's crazy and busy and things are happening, I'll start to notice some things start to creep back in because I haven't caught it early enough. So I think having a conscious reflective practice, and that's, I guess, my model of infinite leadership is about developing that and whole system around how to do that. But having a really solid reflective practice without judgment is probably the biggest thing, both personally and professionally, that has helped me navigate and evolve through really difficult times, but also continue to grow through positive times instead of becoming complacent.
Outstanding. Great message. Any final words?
I would love to connect with your audience. And if any of this has resonated, please hit me up on elementsforsuccess.com.au. And if you want to learn more about the infinite leadership journey, please reach out and I'd love to share more about what's going on. And I'm so grateful to you, Ed, and your Elevate Your Business podcast, because I think what you're doing is so powerful because people need to know that people are walking alongside them in this journey and that they're not alone. And that, that's how we that model the way that I talked about earlier. So thank you for being an exemplary example of that.
Thank you. And that is absolutely one of my key missions. So thank you for being part of today. I want to thank you all for joining us today with a special thank you to Kylie Leota for sharing her insights and success tactics. We hope you feel inspired and motivated to tackle entrepreneurial challenges with innovation and adaptability. Remember, success is personal. Define it for yourself. But always remember, embrace change, seek growth, and adapt to the ever-evolving business landscape. Thanks again to Kylie and to all of our listeners, and we'll see you next time as we continue exploring stories from incredible entrepreneurs. Stay resilient, stay innovative, and have a wonderful day, everybody.